At the age of 66, my long-lost husband Kevin returned home in glory. Back then, he had left behind just one sentence: "Take good care of my parents and our child." After that, there was no news from him. I gritted my teeth and raised our daughter alone, caring for my in-laws until they passed away in their 80s. As I approached the end of my life, looking at my grown daughter filled me with deep comfort. At least, I thought, I hadn't failed Kevin's trust. Yet, my daughter, heartbroken, held my hand and said someone from the past had come to visit. The next second, I saw my husband, missing for 40 years, standing by my hospital bed. He wore a suit and tie, his new wife and children neatly by his side. In a tone dripping with charity, he said, "After all, we were husband and wife in name. You raised our daughter and cared for my parents. Let me at least send you off on your final journey." Only then did I realize he had been alive all along, already remarried, with children, and now a wealthy businessman. Anger and heartbreak overwhelmed me. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I saw was that farewell letter. Chapter 1. Take good care of my parents and our child. I'm leaving. Reading those words again, it was like being struck by lightning. It was the first letter I had received from Kevin, 6 months after he disappeared. In my previous life, I had naively believed that Kevin must have taken his own life, until I turned 66. When illness from a lifetime of hardship confined me to a hospital bed, Kevin stood before me with his wife and children, claiming he was there to see me off. His wife had smooth, glowing skin, nothing like my pale face, sunken cheeks, and deeply wrinkled features. Only then did I realize, though I'm leaving in that letter didn't mean he died. It meant he had abandoned us to start a new life. The thought made me tremble with rage. Since Kevin wanted to fake his death and even had my in-laws help cover it up, then so be it, I'd make sure he stayed dead. I took the farewell letter straight to the town's photography studio. I had Kevin's ID photo enlarged and printed as a memorial portrait. Then, I went to Uncle's house at the village entrance and asked him to organize a morning band. Before long, word spread through the village: "Kevin has died." I paraded through the village in tears, organizing the band, printing the photo, and notifying all the relatives and neighbors. When the villagers flooded into our yard, they found me clutching Kevin's memorial portrait, sobbing uncontrollably, while our 1-year-old daughter wailed beside me. My in-laws were dragged in from the fields and froze in shock when they arrived. My father-in-law roared, "Elise, what on earth are you doing?" Tears streaming down my face. I pulled out the farewell letter. "Dad, Mom, Kevin is gone. I must give him a proper farewell, even if I don't know where his body is. But the ceremony must go on." From the corner of my eye, I watched my father-in-law's face flush red, then pale, then red again before he cursed furiously. "Nonsense. How can you declare Kevin dead based on one letter? Are you cursing my son to die?" He insisted his son wasn't dead, just in trouble and unable to come home. He glanced at Kevin's large memorial portrait in the main hall, then turned on me, barking, "Put away that photo. Tell your uncle to send the band away, right now." My mother-in-law, catching his signal, hurried to the courtyard to disperse the crowd. "Our Kevin just went missing for a few days. It's all a misunderstanding. Everyone, please go home." But I lunged into the courtyard and shouted loudly, "Dad, Mom, do you know where Kevin really went?" They dodged my gaze, my mother-in-law fidgeting nervously. My father-in-law mumbled, "How would we know? The letter didn't say." "We're just guessing." They refused to meet my eyes. I deliberately raised my voice. "If you're so sure Kevin is alive, then I'll go to the city and search for him at his workplace. A grown man can't just vanish into thin air." Clutching my daughter, I squeezed through the crowd. My in-laws panicked and lunged to stop me. "You can't go. You absolutely cannot go." Chapter 2. In my past life, it was also when I insisted on looking for Kevin that my in-laws went mad trying to stop me. They said Kevin was just having a rough time. If I went to his workplace and made a scene, it would ruin his reputation. And when he came back, he wouldn't be able to return to his old job. I was so naive then, terrified by their words. Only now do I understand, they were in on it together, lying to me from the start. My mother-in-law clung to my waist desperately. My father-in-law stood in front of me, arms spread wide. "You can't go. Elise, you absolutely must not go." What if Kevin is just going through something and returns in a few days? If you ruin his reputation, he'll lose his job. The same excuse, again. Disheveled. Hair a mess. Tears streaming down my face. I must have looked pitiful. I cried and begged them. Dad, Mom, we have to know if Kevin is alive or dead. If he's lost his life, what's the point of saving his job? What's more important, his life or his job? Hearing my words, the neighbors around us started murmuring their agreement. Of course life is more important than work. These old folks have lost their minds. What kind of parents only worry about work but not their son's life? They have to at least check if he's alive. Voices rose one after another, seeing their argument losing ground. My in-laws changed their tone. Elise, calm down first. We'll have your cousin go into the city and ask around. In my previous life, it had played out the same. My cousin had gone, asked a few questions, and came back saying nobody at the factory knew anything. They guessed Kevin must have broken down emotionally and told me not to worry. But I couldn't rest easy. I wanted to go myself. That's when my mother-in-law accidentally got trampled by a cow while plowing the fields. She claimed she needed 100 days to recover, forcing me to stay behind to care for her. This time, my father-in-law tried the same trick. I seized the chance. Dad, such a serious matter, I must go with Uncle to the city. He wanted to refuse, but the neighbors all stood with me. Seeing no way out, he finally softened his tone. Fine, tonight. Your cousin will come over to discuss it with us. Everyone, go home for now. But that night, my cousin never showed up. After dinner, my father-in-law left the house and came back later claiming he had spoken to my cousin, who would head to the city the next day. I wiped down Kevin's memorial photo. My father-in-law frowned in displeasure. There's no news yet, can't you just put that photo away? I refused. Old folks say preparing funeral clothes and portraits ahead of time brings good fortune. Maybe keeping this photo up will actually help Kevin turn his luck around. My father-in-law stormed away in anger. The next morning, before dawn, a scream echoed from the courtyard. It was my mother-in-law. She had been kicked by the cow. In my past life, she had faked a foot injury while plowing to keep me from going to the city. This time, I'd made sure the cow would truly go wild. The night before, I secretly added a bowl of chicken blood to the cow's feed trough. Cows can't stand the smell of blood. It drives them into a frenzy. Sure enough, chaos erupted in the courtyard. I heard my father-in-law's desperate cry. Elise, hurry! Your mother's been kicked. I lazily got up, slowly dressed, and strolled outside. Blood pooled on the ground. My mother-in-law's mouth bled, and it looked like she had taken a serious hit. I shouted urgently, Dad, get a car! We need to get her to the city hospital. She might have internal bleeding. If we wait too long, it'll be too late. After death, my spirit had wandered in rage, lingering near Kevin and his new wife. From what I remembered, their wedding was just days away. Heading into the city now, I might just catch them. Chapter 3. I hurriedly called the neighbors over to help. My father-in-law still refused to go to the city, but everyone insisted, and eventually we took my mother-in-law to the village clinic. The barefoot doctor there shook his head immediately after checking her. No good. She'd better go to the city for a proper checkup. My equipment's too outdated for this. My mother-in-law lay in the cart, coughing non-stop, face pale, spitting blood several times. My father-in-law puffed on his pipe, head bowed deep in thought. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "To the city." I rushed home, left my daughter in the care of Aunt Monica, a kind neighbor, and packed a few of my mother-in-law's toiletries. Then I followed my father-in-law into the city. By the time we got her admitted to the hospital, it was already mealtime. My stomach growled loudly, and my father-in-law's rumbled along in chorus. He told me to buy food, but I turned my empty pockets inside out to show him. Dad, we're out of money. Everything we had went toward the hospital deposit. I'll have to go back to the village and borrow some. My father-in-law gave me a long look and waved me off. As soon as I stepped outside the hospital gates, I turned and headed straight for Kevin's old workplace, looking for my dad's old friend, Uncle Mario. Back when my father had that accident at the factory, the company had offered a compensation arrangement, letting a family member take his job. Kevin had insisted on stepping up, saying the job would be too hard on me. Uncle Mario was the one who had helped Kevin get that position. If I was going to expose Kevin at his wedding, I needed Uncle Mario there too. When I found Uncle Mario and explained the situation, he lent me 50 yuan, supposedly to help with my mother-in-law's hospital expenses. After that, I rushed back to the village. I told everyone that my mother-in-law's condition was serious and might need surgery. Upon hearing this, the whole village became concerned and insisted on visiting her. Some neighbors brought eggs. Others brought red sugar from home. The next day, more than a dozen of us set off together in a big, lively group to the city hospital. After visiting my mother-in-law, I suggested we go out for lunch, though the city was only a 2-hour bus ride from the county town. For the villagers, stepping into the city felt like entering a whole new world. Everything fascinated them. Guided by memory, I led everyone to the city's biggest restaurant, People's Restaurant. More importantly, Kevin's wedding was supposed to take place right there. If I wasn't mistaken, it was supposed to be today. Before leaving the hospital that morning, I had even called Uncle Mario again, inviting him to a meal to thank him, arranging the meeting right at People's Restaurant. I led the whole group in. The villagers couldn't stop marveling at everything they saw. I kept my eyes fixed on a wedding ceremony happening on one side of the grand hall. Turning to Aunt Monica beside me, I said casually, "Auntie, city folks are really fancy, aren't they? Look at those beautiful clothes they're wearing for the wedding." Aunt Monica squinted toward the distance. It seemed she couldn't see clearly, so she hurriedly took 2 steps forward. Suddenly, she turned back and shouted at me, "Elise, that groom looks a lot like Kevin." Everyone, hearing Aunt Monica's words, turned to look, curious. It really does. The more you look, the more alike they seem. Could 2 people really look this similar? But, the vibe's a bit different. Doesn't feel like Kevin. Kevin was holding his new bride's hand, toasting the guests. I clenched my teeth and said bitterly, "Let's get closer and take a look." As we moved nearer, I clearly saw the mole under Kevin's chin. Aunt Monica noticed it too. She gasped and cried out, "Kevin!" Kevin immediately looked up. When he saw our group, he quickly turned his head, eyes evasive, pretending he hadn't seen us. Still trying to play dumb? I strode forward and slapped him hard across the face. "Kevin, getting remarried without even telling me?" Chapter 4. At first, Kevin was furious. Then a flash of panic crossed his eyes, but he quickly collected himself. He hid behind his bride and said he didn't know me. Aunt Monica stomped her foot and pointed right at him. "Boy, I watched you grow up. Even if you turned to dust, I'd still recognize you. And didn't you leave Elise a farewell letter? What are you doing here getting married to someone else?" The villagers behind me looked confused at first, but once they pieced things together, they became furious. Everyone started speaking up for me. "Kevin, we almost didn't recognize you. You're already married back home. What is this wedding supposed to be? You left just one letter and disappeared. And now you don't even know your mother's in the hospital, needing surgery." The voices rose into chaos. Kevin's bride, Rita, her face flushed, maybe from anger, maybe from fear, pointed at me and shouted, "Stop talking nonsense. This is my husband. I'm his wife. When has he ever been married before? We don't know any of you. If you keep slandering us, we'll call the police." All of the guests were from Rita's side of the family. To hide his marriage, Kevin hadn't invited a single coworker. But since I had come all this way, I wasn't about to come unprepared. I glanced at the hotel entrance. Uncle Mario happened to be walking in. I immediately raised my voice and shouted, "Uncle, I'm over here." Everyone turned toward him. Kevin's face instantly went pale. To be fair, his fair skin and good looks were even more polished now. Clearly, 6 months of city life had pampered him. He did look more attractive than he used to back in the village. No wonder Rita fell for him. Kevin tried to sneak away behind Rita, but I yanked him back by the flashy groom pin on his chest. I looked at Uncle Mario, holding back tears. "Uncle, didn't you tell me Kevin went out of town to attend a friend's wedding? Then why is he here, marrying someone else?" And with that, I collapsed to the floor and started bawling. I've had to raise our daughter all by myself, and care for his aging parents too, to improve our life. I carry rocks from the mountains every day like a man. My back is covered in blisters and bruises. If it weren't for my mother-in-law getting kicked by a cow, I wouldn't even be in the city right now. Who would have thought I'd run into Kevin marrying someone else? Uncle, you have to stand up for me. Uncle Mario had already been shocked, but after hearing my words, his expression hardened. He turned a stern look toward Kevin. What the hell is this? Kevin, you already have a wife at home. How can you marry someone else in the city? That's illegal. Don't you know that? Kevin mumbled weakly. Uncle, we never registered our marriage legally. It doesn't count. The neighbors were livid. You held a full-on wedding in the village. Everyone knows you're married. How does that not count? And your job? Elisa's father gave his life for that position. How dare you abandon her and marry someone else? The scene was complete chaos. Rita tried to argue back, but her parents pulled her aside. Kevin was completely overwhelmed. He clearly never expected things to blow up like this. Uncle Mario turned to me, still sitting on the ground. Elise, what do you want to do? Don't worry. I'll back you no matter what. Aunt Monica and the neighbors helped me to my feet. They all tried to console me. Let it go, Elise. He's made a huge mistake, but everyone deserves a second chance. Just go home. You too, start over. But I refused. No, Uncle. If Kevin doesn't want to stay with me anymore, I want a divorce. But on one condition, the child stays with me. Chapter 5. As soon as I spoke, everyone looked at me, shocked. Aunt Monica tugged my sleeve from behind. Elise, if you divorce him, how will you raise the child all by yourself? Other neighbors chimed in to persuade me. Men will always make mistakes, as long as he realizes it and changes. It's enough. But they only saw Kevin's momentary lapse. They couldn't see the lifetime of regret I had lived through in my previous life. I turned firmly toward Uncle Mario. Uncle, after my father's accident, the job at the factory should have gone to me, but I let Kevin take it because we were married. Now that we're divorcing, and I'm left alone with our child, could the factory give the job back to me? Uncle Mario pondered for a moment and nodded. Don't worry, Elise. As long as I'm here, I'll make sure it happens. Hearing that I wanted to take the job back, Kevin immediately panicked. You're just a housewife. You have no idea how hard it is outside. How can you possibly manage it while taking care of a child? This job isn't suitable for you. Let's stick to the old ways. You stay home with the kid, and I'll send money every month. Rita also chimed in. You're just a village woman. What can you even do? Isn't it better to stay home and enjoy the money? Rita did look glamorous, especially with her full makeup from the wedding. But I couldn't help thinking about my past life. They were living in a big city house, driving fancy cars, while my daughter and I pinched every penny. Even buying a single dress for her meant months of saving. That life? That humiliation? I wasn't going back to it. I stood my ground. That job was earned with my father's life. It belongs to me. Not only did I want my rightful job back, I wanted my rightful money too. I pulled out a small notebook I carried with me. Inside, every single expense was clearly recorded. Here's the record of every expense at home over the years. Kevin earned 180 yuan a month, but only sent home 20. All the daily expenses, the social obligations, and even my in-laws' medical costs, I covered them all. For instance, for my mother-in-law's current hospitalization, I borrowed 200 yuan from our neighbors and Uncle Mario. Over the last 3 years, that adds up to 1,560 yuan. Uncle Mario, shouldn't Kevin pay that back to me? Kevin's face grew uglier by the second. Rita couldn't hold back anymore. She shouted sharply, "You're just trying to extort him because of the divorce. How do we know your numbers are even real?" I gave her a cold, dismissive look. Kevin's salary was half mine to begin with. And you, a homewrecker, have no right to speak here. I haven't even held you accountable for breaking up a marriage. And yet you have the nerve to argue with me? Rita's face turned ashen, and she shut up immediately. I seized the chance and shouted, "If you don't pay me now, I'll expose everything. I'll make sure the entire factory knows that Kevin seduced another woman while he was already married." Saying this, I started to head toward the stage. Rita's parents quickly stopped me, urging Kevin, "The guests are still waiting for the wedding ceremony. Settle this quickly." Kevin looked back at the gathering crowd, face twisted with unwillingness, and finally muttered, "Fine, fine, I'll agree." but he said he didn't have that much cash on him and wanted to write an IOU. I refused coldly. You have enough money to throw a wedding, you can afford to pay me right now. If I let him write an IOU, I knew I'd never see that money again. Rita gritted her teeth, pulled out a stack of cash from her bag, and slapped it down on the table. I picked it up and counted, exactly 1,560 yuan. I turned back toward Aunt Monica and the others and announced loudly, "Neighbors, you all witnessed everything today. Later, when we explain this to my in-laws, I'll count on you to help clarify the truth. Since Kevin claims we never registered our marriage, then fine, all those years I spent were for nothing." The villagers were stunned, not expecting me to be so firm and decisive. Aunt Monica shot a furious glare at Kevin and snapped, "Your mother is lying in a hospital bed needing surgery, and you're here throwing a wedding? Some filial son you are." Chapter 6. After we left the hotel, Uncle Mario tried to comfort me. He said he'd return to the factory and discuss everything with the leadership. He promised to give me a proper explanation and told me not to worry. We'd been battling all afternoon and hadn't eaten. Everyone's stomachs were growling from hunger. I wanted to treat everyone to a bowl of noodles at a roadside stall, but Aunt Monica and the neighbors unanimously refused. "You're a woman with a child to raise, life won't be easy. Save that money for yourself. We came all this way to visit your in-laws. One meal isn't going to break us. Let me treat you instead." I hesitated, clearly troubled. Aunt Monica looked at me, confused. "Is there something else on your mind? Go ahead and say it. If I can help, I will." I gave her a long, meaningful look. "Auntie, when I tried to hold a funeral for Kevin, my in-laws blocked me at every turn. This time, when I said I wanted to come to the city to find him, they did everything to stop me again. Over the years, I've handled all the household chores, looked after the family, but I can't shake the feeling that they never really trusted me." As I spoke, my eyes turned red with tears. The neighbors exchanged knowing glances and quickly chimed in. No wonder his parents didn't panic when Kevin disappeared. At the time, we thought they were just old and confused. But maybe they knew the whole time. Maybe they were hiding it from you. Remember when your father-in-law told you not to put up Kevin's memorial photo? Now that I think about it, he barely reacted when he got the so-called farewell letter. Exactly. There's no way they weren't in on it. The more they talked, the angrier they got. That shameless old couple, you broke your back for them, gave them a grandson, took care of everything, and they had the nerve to treat you like that? Even if they didn't care about you, they should have at least thought about their granddaughter. Don't worry, Elise, we've got your back. If they won't show you respect, they can't expect loyalty. We'll make them give you an answer today. When we entered the hospital room, I hadn't even said a word yet, and Aunt Monica already tore into my in-laws. "Kevin's dad, your son is out there marrying another woman. Did you know about this?" My father-in-law's gaze shifted evasively as he turned away. "Don't talk nonsense. Kevin just needed time to clear his head. He went out for a few days." Aunt Monica pressed on. "It's not just me, we had over 10 people see it with their own eyes. You can't fake something like that. You two tried everything to stop Elise from coming to the city. Why? Because you knew your son was getting remarried, didn't you?" My mother-in-law, lying in bed, looked frightened. She stammered, "No way, it's just a coincidence, right?" Then she realized what she'd said and shut her mouth. But it was too late. Everyone had heard it. I didn't bother pretending anymore. In front of everyone, I declared, "Kevin and I are already divorced. He replaced my father at the factory, and they've agreed to give the job back to me." Kevin's mom clutched her chest in silence. His dad, however, glared at me furiously. "He was your husband. How could you be so heartless?" I shot him a cold look. "When you were pushing your son to marry someone else, did you stop to remember he was my husband?" Kevin's father turned red with rage, but he had no response. Then I dropped the final blow. "After we got married, your entire family moved into my parents' house. Now that we're divorced, pack your things. You're moving out of the home my parents left me." Chapter 7. Back in the village, I didn't even need to open my mouth. Kevin's glorious city wedding spread like wildfire across our village and even to the neighboring ones. The house my parents left me was a small brick home, one of the very first brick houses built in our area. When my parents passed away, Kevin's entire family moved in. I asked Aunt Monica to help me throw all of Kevin's things out. She's always been direct, quick to act. She rounded up a bunch of aunties, grannies, and even some young men in the village. In no time, the place was cleared out. That evening, I braised some pork belly. The house was empty, but my heart had never felt so full. 2 lifetimes of resentment finally found release. Just as my daughter and I were devouring our dinner, there was a loud knock at the door. I tucked my daughter in and opened the door, only to find Kevin's father pushing a cart. Lying on it was none other than Kevin's mother. He pointed at me furiously and shouted, "Your mom is sick. How can you be so heartless? Turning us away like this? Haven't you learned to respect your elders?" I chuckled coldly. My real parents are buried underground. What other parents are you talking about? This house belonged to my parents. Yours is across the road. Don't come knocking on the wrong door. I was about to shut the door when Kevin's dad blocked it with his arm. Right then, Aunt Monica's door creaked open. She came into the yard, saw who it was, and immediately snapped. "You two are really something. Old as you are, you still have no shame? Showing up in the middle of the night like this to rob a widow?" She raised her voice on purpose. "Everyone come see this. These 2 old scammers came crawling back to steal from a widow. Look at them." Monica's voice has always been loud, and it carried down the whole street. After just 2 shouts, Kevin's dad hastily wheeled the cart away. Aunt Monica wasn't done yet. "If you dare show up again, don't blame me for being rude." Before leaving, she warned me, "Word is, Kevin's new bride has no money for medical bills. That's why they left the hospital. If they come bothering you again, just shout for me across the courtyard." I walked her out gratefully. Looking across the street, I couldn't help but sneer. Kevin's parents always took the best food and drink for themselves. The kid only got a bite once in a while. They said that was tradition passed down from ancestors. And now, Kevin had only been married 1 day, and they were kicked out of the hospital. Serves them right. The next day, Uncle Mario rode his bicycle all the way to our village to deliver the news. The factory had held a meeting. Kevin was officially fired, and I was approved to take his place. They even offered me a special position, considering I was a single mother. I packed up lightly, carried my 2-year-old daughter, and climbed onto the back of Uncle Mario's bike. Early spring wind was still cold on my face, but inside, I was glowing with joy. This time, I would seize my destiny with my own hands. The factory originally wanted to assign me to logistics, but I declined. I knew that in a few years, the state-owned companies would start collapsing. In my last life, Kevin worked in sales, and he saw the opportunities before anyone else. When the factory shut down, he used its connections to launch his own success story. So this time, I chose sales. Chapter 8. To take care of me. The factory assigned me a single dormitory room, more than enough space for me and my daughter. I enrolled my daughter in the factory's kindergarten. At home, I entrusted Aunt Monica to keep an eye on things. If anything happened, she could call the factory directly. Every Monday, I sent my daughter to school, and every Friday, I picked her up. It felt like I had endless energy. In just half a year, I fought my way to become the #1 salesperson at the factory. Everyone said I was fierce and daring, but only I knew how precious the second chance was to me. A few years later, when the state-owned enterprises started to restructure, I proactively applied for voluntary redundancy. Over the years, I had saved some money, and with a few loans from friends, I became a household appliance distributor. At first, it was just a tiny shop. Then it grew, bigger stores, more employees, until I could barely manage it alone. One day, while busy in the store, someone came in looking for a job. I looked up, and almost didn't recognize him. It was Kevin. In my previous life, Kevin had built success through his job in sales, borrowing money from Rita's uncle, and becoming one of the first appliance dealers. But this life was different. He'd been fired from the factory. I heard he worked many jobs, always too arrogant, always quitting because the work was too hard or the pay too low. In my past life, having a stable job gave him some credibility. This time, after several failed business attempts, no one would lend him a dime. Kevin's expression was complicated when he saw me. Maybe envy, maybe regret, trying to butter me up. He said, I heard you've opened several stores now. We're old acquaintances, you're hiring anyway, right? Why not make me a store manager? I sneered. Oh, if you're starving, I can buy you a meal. But begging for food and demanding a throne, where do you get that kind of nerve? Kevin trembled with rage. Elise, you wouldn't have today without me, your ex-husband. You ought to be grateful. You just wait. He stormed off, humiliated. I knew he wouldn't let it go. Sure enough, 2 days later, 2 old people showed up outside my shop. It was Kevin's parents, pushing a cart and blocking the entrance. Seeing me come out, they grabbed my arm. Elise, we're your parents too. Now that you have money, how can you abandon us? I was stunned. Where did these extra parents come from? Looking closely, it was Kevin's parents, stooped and coughing. You and Kevin were husband and wife. And the child, Kevin is her only father. Even if you don't care about Kevin, think about the kid. Even though you divorced, in our hearts, you're still our daughter-in-law. You have so many stores now, you won't miss just one. Let Kevin manage one. I almost gagged from the disgust. I shook off their hands and pointed ahead. There stood Rita, heavily pregnant, glaring at me. I had spotted her earlier, waiting to ambush me inside the store. Good thing I came out first. A wicked idea popped into my mind. Your daughter-in-law is standing right there. Why don't you go beg her? Kevin's parents had shouted loudly. Rita must have heard everything. Before I could say another word, Rita, like a crazy hen, grabbed a broom from a street cleaner nearby and charged. Since when was I not your daughter-in-law? You better explain yourselves. She swung the broom, chasing them around. Kevin's dad, quick on his feet, ran fast. His mother, coughing and slower, got whacked several times. The ridiculous scene finally ended. But the next day, Rita came back again. She sat outside our shop, cradling her pregnant belly. You wouldn't have opened these shops if it weren't for the compensation we gave you back then. These stores should belong to us too. Chapter 9. You owe us at least 2 shops. If you don't give them, I'll just sit here and never leave, Rita said, sticking her belly out even more, dragging a stool to sit right at the entrance. Whenever someone approached, she would drive them away, shouting that the store was closed. Being pregnant, she knew we couldn't forcibly move her. The clerks anxiously asked me what to do. Even if we called the police, they would only try to mediate. On the first day, not a single customer managed to enter. On the second day, I called a van and had Aunt Monica find 7 or 8 elderly villagers, all over 70 years old. I paid each of them 50 yuan a day for the hassle. When Kevin dropped off Rita at the shop in trance, those elderly ladies were already lined up in front of the store, sunning themselves and casually munching on sunflower seeds. Whenever Rita tried to enter, Monica and her team would move accordingly. If Rita moved east, they blocked east. If she moved west, they blocked west. Wherever Rita tried to go, they closed ranks, completely surrounding her. I stood at the entrance, laughing my head off. She wanted to threaten me with pregnancy? Fine. I fought back with a squad of grandmas. Seeing herself unable to enter, Rita stomped her feet in frustration. Kevin hurried over to plead. Aunties, we just want to look around the store. Why are you blocking us? We're all neighbors. Monica, leaning at the door, spat out a sunflower seed husk and sneered. Oh, we're just sunbathing, not blocking anything. Nobody paid attention to Kevin or Rita. Whenever someone tried to enter the shop, Rita would rush toward the gap. She charged forward recklessly, only for the elderly ladies to part at the last second. Rita lost her balance and fell right onto the ground. She immediately began to wail. Help! Someone's bullying a pregnant woman. The grandmas, nibbling their seeds, looked innocent. Did we touch her? No, none of us touched her. We all saw. She fell all by herself. Rita screamed and cried in pain, but there was nothing they could do. Kevin had to rush her to the hospital. Out of spite, they even called the police. But after questioning, everyone stuck to the same story. She fell by herself. Looking at a group of white-haired grandmas, the police couldn't find anything wrong. In the end, Rita not only failed to gain anything, but even fractured her tailbone from the fall. Rita was sent back to Kevin's family home, supposedly for her parents to take care of her. Aunt Monica told me Rita was extremely spoiled, demanding seafood, delicacies, extravagant meals. Kevin's parents were just simple farmers. How could they afford such luxuries? The mother-in-law, coughing constantly, cooked basic food. But Rita refused to eat, saying it was full of germs from her coughing. Aunt Monica, always with sunflower seeds stuffed in her pockets, stood at the door every day enjoying the drama. I heard Rita demanded to eat chicken, but Kevin's mom could only give her pumpkin after pumpkin to eat. Later, she went around the village, complaining loudly, "My daughter-in-law hasn't even given birth yet and already ate a dozen of our pumpkins." Then one day, while she was gossiping at the gate, someone shouted, "Fire! Fire!" Everyone looked up. Kevin's backyard was ablaze. The fire spread fast. Half the house was engulfed. Rita stood in the courtyard, laughing like a maniac. "That's what you get for feeding me pumpkins. Choke on them. Burn. All of you." Kevin's parents rushed into the burning house trying to salvage valuables, but the flames were too fierce. Their old clay house caught fire quickly. Someone called the police. When the police came, Rita cried, saying she had been trying to cook chicken, but didn't know how to manage the fire. After investigation, it was deemed a domestic dispute, no criminal charges. But Kevin's parents didn't escape unscathed. One suffered severe smoke inhalation and went into a coma. The other had a leg crushed by a falling beam. Kevin now had to run back and forth, taking care of both his hospitalized parents and the pregnant Rita. Aunt Monica, looking gossipy, said to me, "You have no idea, Kevin is truly miserable now." Rita gave birth to a daughter 2 months later and immediately divorced him. She dumped the child on him. Now he has to take care of his comatose, paralyzed parents and the baby. Let me tell you, what goes around comes around. Retribution always comes. Just a matter of time. I smiled lightly. I handed Aunt Monica a bag full of fruit. "Auntie, it's all thanks to your help that my store could stay open." Aunt Monica waved her hand grandly. "We're women, we should help each other. Seeing you living well makes me genuinely happy." I held her hand, feeling deeply grateful. I knew that from now on, my life would only get better.